Hey guys, this is Creatures of the Night Podcast, and I am Wendy.
I'm Chris. Hello.
And on this week's episode, we are sharing something paranormal like a tale or a discovery that we learned just this week.
Bammo. Brand new.
Brand new.
Spanking. Hot.
Because we're always reading or listening to podcasts or maybe catch something, just in social media or on TV. So what did you find this week, Chris? You want to go first or you want me to go first?
Whatever. You want to flip a coin?
Well, you went first last week. So
yeah, that's true. That's your
I'll
turn.
go first this week. So mine, I got from a book that I can't even remember the title to, but it's the story of Carl Eden, who was born. Have you heard this?
No, but I was freaking out. I was like, mine came from a book too.
Look, there's
no.
a million books in the world. How do we have the same book? No.
Okay. Whew.
Actually, we do have a lot of the same books. But Carl was born in 1972 in Middlesbrough, England, to Christian parents, James and Valerie. And the reason I point out that they're Christian is to tell you that they don't believe in reincarnation. And
Okay.
they claim it was something they never spoke of in their home. So they were pretty surprised when 3-year-old Carl came up to them and told them that he used to be a German bomber pilot.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Now, I think they wrote this off at first, like you would with most things that come out of a toddler's mouth. Like,
Sure.
okay, kiddo, sure, whatever. That is strange how you came up with that, but all right. But Carl kept repeating this over the years. And after a while, he even started to add a Nazi salute at the end.
Yikes.
And they're like, wait a minute, how do you know this stuff?
Oh, my
So
God.
they started asking him questions like, well, what was your name when you were a pilot? And he said, Robert. And my dad's name was like Frez or something like that. But he couldn't remember his mom's name, though he could remember what she looked like and her personality. Like he would tell them, yeah, I used to have to do a lot of chores like chop wood and carry it home in a wheelbarrow. I lived in a small village in Germany in the woods, and my mom would get really mad at me if I didn't do my chores. My dad would teach me about the flowers and the trees, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Actually, they're Christians.
He was
so they probably
Magneto.
didn't say that.
No.
Yeah. That would have been an epic ending. But he's explaining this whole village that looks nothing like where they live. Like Middlesbrough is a real industrial town. So they're like, how does he even imagine up all this stuff? But so far, he's just telling them about, my dad, my mom. He said he had brothers. He said one of his younger brothers died in the Second World War. And he even said that he had a girl that he was going to marry. And that he was really sad that when he died, he never made it back to see her. So they're like,
Wow.
all right. All this is strange, but we can't actually check it out. So we don't really know if you're just making up stories or not. Until he started drawing pictures of planes and German insignias and military badges and swastikas.
Yeah,
So-
I knew you were going to go there.
Of course. And they're like, hold up, that's not good. So the dad would go to the library and match up the pictures with what these military badges actually looked like. And they were correct. And they said, well, what did you used to wear? And he perfectly explained what those uniforms would look like. So again, the dad's checking out that information. And then when he was 6 years old, he drew a picture of an entire plane's cockpit. And then he could explain what the gears did.
A 6-year-old can't do
6-year-old.
that.
Yeah, and the dad,
Cannot.
this is not his field. So he has to take everything to the library. He's taking these drawings up there. And he's reading and checking it out. And it's matching up. And he's like,
Wow.
wait, this is just weird.
Yeah, right. His dad's like a baker, and he's like, kid, what are you talking about? What is this? You're blowing my mind.
It's like when my kid's talking to me about his calculus, and I'm like, yep, I don't know what you're talking about.
I agree.
That's another language to me. So Carl insisted that he had died when his plane got shot down in 1942 during a bombing raid over England, and the plane crashed. And in the crash, he lost his right leg, which Carl had a birthmark near his groin area on the upper part of his right leg.
No
So his
kidding.
mom's like, that is really strange.
That is really strange. And you have heard stories about birthmarks and
Yes.
the meaning. Yes, yeah.
And when I'm reading this, I start to think about, I've had a couple of dreams where I thought maybe I had a past life and I knew a little bit about it. And I swear, when I was younger, I used to have a birthmark right on my wrist.
Yeah.
And now I can't see it. So I don't know where it went or if I imagined it. But I could have swore I used to have one on my wrist.
I had one that traveled. This one right here that you can't see.
Yeah.
But it used to be more on my wrist and it's moved. So maybe it's just moved down a little bit as you've gotten older.
Like you grow up and yeah. So maybe that's why I couldn't find it. Well, also,
maybe it traveled.
Living out here in Arizona and stuff, I usually stay a little more tan. And that's what it was, is just kind of like a tan little spot right there on my wrist. And I did used to have a dream. I didn't witness myself doing anything. I thought that I was this woman who had lost her children and was very sad, and she killed herself. Because
oh my God.
I mean, she was just in a bad situation, period. Also dreamed I was a murderer. So, like, maybe she had murdered someone after her children died, and then she killed herself.
Or multiple lives.
Or, yeah, more than one. I don't know. I can't find the birthmark, so it's not a very good story anymore. But Carl had this birthmark. He also had blonde hair and blue eyes, which his mom had blue eyes, but the whole rest of the family, because he had sisters and brothers, had dark hair. Plus, he was also pretty pale, while their skin was a little darker and tanned a lot easier than him.
That's why Daddy was up at the library. He's like, I got to make sure this kid isn't telling a lie, and he is really my kid.
That's what he's worried about.
Yeah.
So when he was 7, he had a friend over for tea, and his mother basically was mortified when he starts telling this friend about how he died in World War II by bleeding out.
Oh, shit.
And how this is terrible. I couldn't imagine hearing your kid say something like this. He also followed up by saying that he was going to die again at a young age. Like he wouldn't live to be 25.
Wow.
I don't know how you work that out. You have a past life, but you can also see the future at the same time. He finished up this description to his friend by telling him about Adolf Hitler. So things got pretty bad for him. After this, that play date went south very quickly, and all the kids at school learned about it and were making fun of him.
Damn.
So he stopped talking about it at school, but he would continue to tell his parents things for a while. These visions seemed to like come to him almost like watching clips from a TV show, you know?
Sure.
They'd just come in for a few seconds to minutes and then they'd be right back out. And he'd see himself as a child, as this other person, or as the adult-ish person in the service, you know? He said he could remember times where he's like wrapping wounds, you know, or he was standing in a hall like in line with all his other soldier people, you know, and what that room looked like.
Sure.
So a journalist eventually caught wind of Carl's extraordinary claim and came and interviewed them and published a small little piece in a local paper. And he was 9 years old when this happened. And then that attracted the attention of this magazine called Women's Own. And that even went on to be published in a Berlin newspaper. So it was getting around. And it even came to the United States. And there was some professor that was all interested in him and went over there, or sent somebody over there to interview him and investigate. And they took part in all of this. But as it became more public, it just got worse and worse at school for him. So he basically shut down after that, and he just quit talking about it. He was coming home in tears all the time. Kids were calling him Adolf Hitler. They were doing Nazi salutes, you know, when he came into the room and stuff like that. It was bad, and he couldn't take it anymore, so he just wanted it to go away, basically.
Poor kid.
So when he was about 13 years old, the memories kind of started to fade, you know, that, or he wasn't talking about it. But by 13, he was like, nope, I don't remember any of that. At 16, he left school and started working at the British Rail. Then in later years, you know, he got into a relationship and he started a family. He was moving on. However, tragedy struck in 1995 when he was in his early 20s and he was found dead, stabbed to death. 37 times this person stabbed him and apparently punctured all of his like major organs.
Wow.
And he bled out. His family and fiance and 2 daughters, 2 little, like his fiance was pregnant when he was murdered. And then she gave birth like a few months later. They were in shock, of course, and this was unbearably painful for them. But a few months afterwards, his parents couldn't help but remember that he had basically predicted that he would die around this age. Then in November of 1997, workers were digging a sewage pipe when they found a mangled metallic structure in the ground. So they called on a professional team and they came in and pulled this old wreckage of a plane out.
Damn, dude.
It was a German bomber plane. And in the plane, there was still a skeleton left there. And they looked up the records or whatever, and they figured out that this was some plane that had crashed in January of 1949.
Wow.
The reason that they know it was this specific plane is because they had pulled 3 of the bodies from the wreckage, like right after it happened, you know, in the part of the wreckage that they saw, and they buried them. But this part was something that kind of like detached and buried deeper, and that's why they never got this other piece, or this guy who was the gunner. And his name was Heinrich Richter. And when they pulled the skeleton out, they also discovered that his leg had severed in the crash.
Yeah. Wow.
So news of the plane was all in the papers and everything, and it was local. It wasn't too far from Carl's family. So they read about it, and about a year after this whole thing happened, they were ready to lay Heinrich's body to rest. So there was this big old ceremony and everything, and Val and Jim, Eden, Carl's parents, attended the funeral to pay their respects because they were fairly confident that this was the man that their son thought he was.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. I mean,
that's crazy.
There were other stories in the book that kind of led up to this one, but it was small things. And we've all read those little stories here and there. There was some twin girls that were born after 2 of their sisters had died. And they didn't know anything about the 2 sisters, yet they would recall toys that they played with. And the town that they were from, the sisters, not them, they didn't even live there anymore. But then as they get older, these things seem to fade. It did with those girls. And I don't even think they got made fun of about it or anything. It wasn't a big public event. They just, as they got older, became their own people.
The story with the 2 girls, I think that's the same one that was in the magazine that you bought for me when you came here.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was like a lore episode or where I had seen it, so I wanted to kind of look it up just to reread it. It was so interesting. But it was in the magazine. That's what it was. There was also some little boy that told
a baseball player.
Yeah, he said he was I don't know, Lou Gehrig or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny.
Crazy the things that come out of their mouth. And you think, okay, the parents are putting them up to this then.
Right.
But those parents that lost those girls, why would they do that to themselves? Why would they come up with that story?
You would torture yourselves as much as you torture them with this.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah.
This family, why the fuck would you say your child was a Nazi? That doesn't seem like the story you would want to come up. Now, the baseball kid, that could be a fake story.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you want that fame. Yeah, but the Nazi kid.
The Nazi kid or I'm my dead sisters. No, that doesn't seem like stories that families would come up with. That seems like you are cursing yourself if you go around telling that lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have a book you might want to read. This one that I'm listening to it on audio because I usually am trying to do 2 things at once. So I'm like trying to listen to a book while I'm working or, something like that. Just something that's going on in the background that I can be like, kind of key into it. Well, this one's one of those stories that I'm actually having a hard time working and listening to it because it's so good. Like I'm pausing it every 5 seconds. I'm like, shit, I'm going to miss this. This is called Psychics, Healers, and Mediums, and it's by Jennifer Weigel. She's a journalist and she goes off and interviews just all these mediums and psychics and healers for the book, saying that she felt it was her duty as a journalist to go behind the scenes with these people who claim that they can talk to dead people or heal the sick and really try to pull the curtain back on their so-called gifts.
Yeah.
So she interviews a bunch of these types of people for the book, and then she also goes and gets readings from each one of them, which is really pretty fucking cool because she puts them on the spot to really show if they've got it or not. And the cool thing is that it seems like they're able to give her stuff that they wouldn't be able to Google. And before I get into the whole reason why I wanted to tell you about this book, I have to say that you are going to want to read this book because of what you just told me. Like I said, she's interviewing them. Like, why does this happen? Why do you think? What is this and what is that? And there are these past lives that kind of come through. And some of these mediums, I don't know their names. I thought it would be actually way too difficult to just spew out all these names. So just go get the book and you'll get their names. But there was one of them that said specifically, I feel like some people come back because they have to come back to redeem themselves. So let's say someone died because of an overdose. It was an accidental overdose and they feel terrible. So then they they come back and they want to work for like the Betty Ford Clinic. That, they want to help people that were in the same situation as them. You talking about having this past life of possible murder or possible killing yourself. I mean, this is in this book too. It's these
and
sort of
so
old
far I haven't
lives.
murdered anybody, so I am
No, that's right.
redeeming myself.
You have redeemed yourself. You're raising children and everything is good, right?
Yeah.
So that's really crazy that you started off your story with that, because this book is talking to, like I said, she's a journalist and she's talking to mediums who are basically saying that, yeah, that happens. That's why you're here. Maybe you weren't a journalist before. There was something that happened to you. Maybe you just died and you're just like, you know what? That really wasn't where I wanted to be. Let's try this again. And they came back.
Yeah, like that wasn't enough for me. Like the kid, he died without getting to marry his girl and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So at least in Carl's life, he didn't marry her, but they had 2 kids. So they must have spent some time together. So he got to start this family and experience love with his children. It's just a shame it wasn't longer. And I don't know why he didn't get that sense. But just one more thing before we move on from this. What you're saying right now about redeeming yourself, I don't know why I've never thought about this. Listening to Carl's story and how he said, my past life, I died young and I know I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
It made me think about what I thought my past life was. And I was like, well, I do not want, anything to happen to my children. I do not want that life at all. So it's so comforting now to hear you say that maybe I exist again to redeem myself. And I'm like, yes, but also that makes a lot of sense because I am very much the type of person that my children are my number one priority. I'm obsessive about it, really. Like, I'm not a helicopter parent, but yes, I may be a helicopter parent. I don't really know what the true definition, but my kids will tell you I'm on them like all the time, watching what they're doing, worried about everything. And I do have issues with depression. I've never come to the point worried that I was actually going to do something like that to myself, but I do have a lot of trouble with depression. And I can easily tell you that there's times where you think if I just didn't exist, it would be easier. I wouldn't have this pain. But I would never do that to myself because of the family and friends that I have. So it's almost like, shit, that makes so much sense. I exist just not to repeat those same mistakes.
Right.
And not killing anybody. Yes.
And that too.
I'm sorry. It's just like listening to you. I'm like, yes. Tell me more.
I am so glad that we are having like book club night because again, I really do feel like you would really like this book. Like I was so shocked. And again, how you said with Carl, how he knew he was going to die at a young age. They touch on that in this book too. Like there are some of us that know that we won't make it onto older ages. Like we are only here to exist within this certain time frame. And then that is it. Your soul moves on. Or there are some mediums that think that your soul actually moves on in another realm. You have another life in another realm. Like it's an incredible book. Like I said, like I had to like, hold on a second. What? I'm trying to work and this and that. And I'm like, no. I can't have this going on in the background. So this Jennifer, who's the author, she's a journalist. Again, she's cynical and funny. Like I'm actually laughing out loud listening to this book, which is really good because you're listening to it and it sounds more like you're listening to your best friend telling you a story rather than just a book like talking monotone, talking blah, blah, blah. So anyways, the thing that I learned, not what I've touched on so far, but I was just blown away by your story and how like I really feel like you'd like this. The thing that I learned is during one of her interviews, one of the mediums or psychics mentioned something called clairalience. Never heard of it. What the hell are you talking about? So, clairalience, if I'm even saying it right, is one of the 7 psychic abilities which involves the sense of smell, an ability to smell a fragrance or odor that is being transmitted by a spirit.
You have that!
I was like, oh my God, my super sensitive sniffer.
We always knew that was a thing for you. Just didn't know what it's called, basically.
Exactly. Wendy, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, yes, I didn't know there was an official title to something like this. It's that sense of smell. This is something that is related to a spirit. This is the way that they're coming through. They're showing you their favorite scent, or if tobacco was their thing, then you would smell the cigarettes or the pipe, So I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to tell Wendy I can't text her because I just learned it this week. This is perfect. So there are actually 7 of these psychic abilities. So just to go on for the story, clairvoyance, which we've all heard about. It's when you have the ability to see or have visions. It's probably the most popular. Clairvoyant mediums have the ability to see things presented to them in the mind's eye or in their third eye. Mm-hmm. These visions are mental flashes that would include pictures of people, scenes, places, objects, spirits, symbols, yada, yada, yada. Then there is clairaudience, which is the ability to hear messages directly from the spirit realm. Messages that are being transmitted directly into your mind. At times, you may hear a nondescript voice call your name or a mix of voices, so it's more like you're listening to the radio.
Yeah.
But you can't turn it off.
I have that. I
You
have
do?
that or I'm losing my mind. But
Our audience.
there are plenty of times that I've gotten up because I thought I've heard someone call my name. It just happened the other night. But I have also heard where it sounds like somebody has the TV on in another room, but nobody's up or anything.
And there's no TVs on.
No, I always just thought it was like my mind won't shut off and I'm still hearing the TV from earlier in the day or whatever. But I barely have the TV on these days.
Yeah, me too. I saw that there was like workshops. Now I didn't like look too far into them, but there are ways that you can tune into these types of the signs of psychic abilities, more of like your sixth sense. So I don't know if they'd be beneficial, but again, it's along the lines of learning how to sit in your trance-like state and meditate.
Yeah.
And then just try to focus on that sort of thing.
Well, to actually get their message, they call my name and I'm like, what do you want?
What do you want?
And then I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go back to bed. You know what I mean?
I know.
Or I hear the TV noise and I'm like, well, okay, never mind.
You're
I'm
trying
going
to
to go back
get
to
through,
sleep.
but
Stop trying to talk to me while I'm sleeping.
Right. Well, and you do have some pretty vivid dreams, so maybe they are trying to get through to you, huh?
I imagine it's the only time my mind's at rest enough for them to get in because it's
allow them
such
to
a busybody all the other times,
Yeah. So then there's clairempathy, which is an empathic medium, but that's just another term for it, clairempathy. And you sense emotion with this one. Mediums that are empaths sense or feel emotions from individual spirits. You would have the ability to access other people's emotions also, and you can sense their happiness, joy, pride, sadness, anger, all of those things. And I know that that's a tough one. I don't really necessarily feel that I'm that way, but sometimes when you're around other people, like their emotions can just be so strong that you feel it and it maybe takes over your own emotion. So I can imagine with these empaths that if someone was feeling like they were going to commit suicide, just all of a sudden walking into a room and you get like that horrible feeling. We hear about that sort of thing on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was so cool to actually, get the definitions, I guess, of all of these all at once.
Yeah.
So then there is clairsentience, which is sensing feeling. And this one is commonly described as the gut feeling or intuition. You have the ability to sense and feel emotions from spirits, both positive and negatives. These feelings are transmitted by your guides and are clearly different from your own feelings. You can receive warnings this way too, feeling like something is just not right, or all of a sudden getting super excited and not knowing why. But you'll feel like something wonderful is about to happen.
Interesting.
I know. So that is clairsentience. And then again, my newest favorite is clairalience, which is the sense of smell. But then there's this other one called clairgustance. And this one, Wendy, you can taste essences transmitted by spirits.
That's very personal.
It is.
So like what kind of taste do you...
It would be like a flavor that would have been someone's favorite. So I'm like, yes, donuts, please.
It's like the only safe way for you to eat donuts.
Yes, exactly.
No, they have gluten-free donuts, but...
They do, but they're gluten-free.
Not the same.
Not the same, exactly. Yeah, I thought that was weird. I've never actually heard of someone getting a taste of something in their mouth and not being able to describe it. I've always known about the smell. To me, that's always been a big one. And then the voices or the feelings, but never a taste. I thought that was really wild.
Yeah, I can't think of a single time that I've ever heard somebody say that they've got a bad taste in their mouth. Sometimes when you're watching the ghost shows or whatever, they might say that they smell the sulfur smell or whatever.
Yeah, the sulfur. Yeah.
And I imagine if it's really strong, you almost feel like you're inhaling it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I can't seem to think of any time that I've heard somebody say that. That one must be really unique and special.
Yeah, that one has to be super unique. As a matter of fact, of the 7, the first 3 are the most common.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 3, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairempathy.
Yeah.
So those are the most common. The other ones are just the few weird ones out there. Of course, I've got the sense of smell, so that, I am a weird one.
That's so interesting, though. So that's just them kind of letting you know that they're there. Right in your whiffer there.
Right in my whiffer, right. Going back to when we went to the Gold Gold Hill.
Gold Hill. Mm-hmm.
And they have this lady that has a rose smell about her, right?
Mm-hmm. Cheap rose perfume.
The cheap rose perfume. I'm like, we need to figure out a way to bottle this. And like, you see, can't you smell it? You probably wouldn't be able to unless you had this ability. So that's why I think maybe some people can smell it, but other people can't. But I love the times when the scent is so powerful that like multiple people can smell it at the same time and just be like, whoa, where the hell did this jasmine scent in this fucking graveyard just come from? You know, it's like,
right.
Bam. There it is. So, yeah, I was super excited. Again, this book is really, really interesting. Honestly, a lot of these mediums and psychics are firm believers in God. So it's really interesting to hear how they're like, yeah, we get a lot of people all the time hate mail from all of these, you shouldn't be messing around with this and that. And they kind of put it fact by fact with things that they've read in the Bible because they have read the Bible and they're just like, yeah, no, but, if you're talking to God, he's kind of a spirit. So, it's an interesting take on a lot of those ideas. And I recommend it. I haven't finished it yet, but 15 minutes and then I'll be done with it. And then I'm probably going to listen to it again just because I liked it so much. So
that sounds so incredibly interesting, though. I would eat that book up. I've got to find it and listen to it. You'll have to post. We're both poking our eyeballs out right now. It's just all of a sudden. I wonder if it's like I saw you digging in your eye and I was like, I need to do that too. Some compulsion, Maybe. It's like somebody sneezes. No, not sneeze. Yawn. And then you have to yawn. Yeah, that type thing.
I totally have a cat hair in my eyeball. That's why I keep digging at it.
Because mine was just sleep. And then I thought, my skin is really oily underneath my eye. Why do I have sleep in my eye at 7:00 at night? I'm like a puppy or something. Or what's that old dogs that get built up? Anyways.
Oh, Lexi does, my dog. But yes, so I did learn one more crazy thing this week, but it's not as cool as this. I really loved my book, so I really wanted to tell you about that. Mm-hmm. You know who Kat Von D is?
Yeah.
She bought a fucking haunted house in Indiana.
Oh, is she from Indiana?
I don't know where she's from, but she lives in California.
Yeah, that's right. Her shop is in California. I don't know why I thought she's from Indiana. But she bought a haunted house in Indiana. What haunted house?
It's a mansion, too, by the way. It's called Schenck Mansion.
That's a good name.
Yeah, right. I know, right? It is beautiful. And she was just like, I'm just looking for a place to retire one day, some place for my kid. We want to get away from the city every now and then. I'm never going to sell my big, beautiful, humble abode in California. But, when I get a little tired of all of that, I can just come to this cute little place in Indiana and be free from it. And I'm scrolling through my story here just to get the name, just to make sure that I said it right. Schenck Mansion. Yeah, it was named after Benjamin Schenck. If you look at it, it's fucking gorgeous. It's 8,000 square feet. So she's got plenty of room to get comfortable there.
To run away from the ghost. Did she say she wanted it because she knew it was haunted, or did she just wanted this old mansion?
She just wanted this old mansion. I personally don't even know if she knew it was on it. I think she knew, but I don't think that was the reason she went after it. It just is a gorgeous old house. It doesn't need updating. Somebody actually went in 2000 and updated it. So it's all set, everything's working and it's gorgeous. They even use this place for wine tasting. I want to go to a haunted B&B for wine tasting.
100%, yeah.
So I was going to actually do my story on that. And then I'm like, wait, I'm reading this awesome book. I've got to tell Wendy about this instead.
Well, I'll tell you real quick, my runner-up that I wanted to tell you about, which I don't have any notes on, so I could get so many facts wrong, but I'll just be really vague about it. I was listening to This Paranormal Life, and they were telling a story about a time in the 1800s, probably late 1800s, where somewhere in Texas, they didn't call it a spaceship. They just called it a ship. Came in super low through the town and then crashed. And people went to go investigate. And then some dude came up and was like, yep, that's a Martian. Legit said, that's somebody from Mars right there. How do you know, sir? But
yeah, right.
This is the really crazy part. They got the body out and they pretty much immediately buried it, gave it a Christian burial.
Nice. That's
where apparently
wow.
Part of the town came and was at this ceremony. And all the while, the news is going out that they had this alien crash here and stuff. So when people show up and they're like, oh, well, we would love to see this body. They're like, nope, sorry, it was buried. And that's, sacrilege. We can't dig it back up. So unless you get permission from this person, family, you can't dig it up. And they're like, no, but wait. So you know it's an alien. We can't ask its family. So can we see it? And they're like,
Yeah.
no, that's wrong. We can't do that. That's against God.
What's the gravestone say? Martian?
So they had to eventually, because so many people like wanted to dig this thing up, they eventually removed whatever stone they did have there, and now it's unmarked. They did end up putting another stone up, but it's not where it's buried.
I see.
I think it just kind of tells the story that it crashed there. It was a Martian, the end. So, of course, there's some people that say that they made up the whole story, but none of the people that actually lived when this happened are still alive. So the ones that are saying it's a made-up story, they weren't there. They're like the great-great-grandchildren or whatever. So they don't know for sure.
Yeah, no, we need to get Josh Gates down there with his LiDAR and
know.
Just comb over those graves. We'll find the one that doesn't have a gravestone.
Maybe you can see how the skeleton looks. If it's an alien Martian, the skeleton shouldn't look like ours, right?
Yeah, it should have an elongated head, right?
Yeah.
Long arms.
Something.
I mean, you should be able to roll over it with your LiDAR, Josh Gates, please. We need to know. That's crazy. I've never heard that story before.
Right.
And Texas.
In Texas. But remember, we did that episode a while back where there's that wall, that ancient wall under the ground. So this alien was probably coming home.
Yeah, I'm scoping it out. Where's my wall? Crash, crash, shit.
I know I had a house somewhere in this area. Where did all these fucking people come from? Ran into a windmill that wasn't there before, you know, when you're not used to the neighborhood because it changes on you.
Right,
I don't know.
right.
That was a crazy story. And I was like, wait, that they gave it a burial is what really blew my mind.
A Christian burial, too.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know, lay him to rest
It's
with
like
the preacher and
so polite and suspicious at the same time.
yes. Yeah, no, that's the best way to put it. It's extremely suspicious. And they're like, nope, you can't pull him back out of the ground. That'd be sacrilege. That's a very interesting thing to learn. So I guess if you have any stories that you want to share with us, you have something that you've learned this week that would blow our minds, or if you have a good story from a book that you think that would be cool to share, please write to us at creaturesofthenightparanormal@gmail.com or DM us on any of our socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's usually COTN Paranormal, or on Instagram, it's just COTN_paranormal. That's the only way you'll find it. You got to put that underscore in there. We don't have anything for contacting aliens, but maybe if you want to raise the dead, you can visit our Spirit Emporium shop on Etsy. We got a lot of great spiritual products there and candles. Our candles are so, so awesome. I love our candles so much. I have one right here. Look.
Ooh, so beautiful.
It's in a wine glass jar bottle, recycled. It's awesome. My candle's almost gone. I need some MOA. So visit us on Etsy and get some of our amazing candles. And that's it, I guess.
Oh, well, what are we doing next week?
Shit, I don't know. What are we doing next week?
I don't know either.
Did you say something about gremlin babies? What it was?
No.
No? Oh, my bad.
So I think what we're going to do...
So for the next week's episode, you guys are going to get a real treat. You're going to hear Chris and Wendy talk about the Ghost Brothers because we love them so much.
We do love them so much. So we are basically going to retell you something we watch on TV.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe you haven't seen the episode and it'll entice you to go and watch it. And we'll both each hopefully come up with a different episode.
Yeah, that would be funny if it's like
the same one. This is my favorite. No, that's my favorite too.
Yeah, so tune in next week. That's what we're going to be doing. Talking about the Ghost Brothers. If you haven't seen them yet, well, stay tuned. Listen to the next episode and get ready to be amazed because they're awesome.
Yeah, awesome. All right, that's it for us today.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.